that you would be involved against bombers, not fighters?
It was archaic and a throwback of before the war, peacetime, when they assumed that there'd be big bomber formations, so you must get a concentration of fire against a big bomber formation, therefore keep all the airplanes together and then go in, so you had a concentration.
Okay, you have control.
Okay, I have control.
Okay, keep your hand on the throttle at all times so you can begin the join up now.
Okay, you keep a good lookout.
I am.
You've got to keep in position to the left or the right of your leader. And it isn't something the aeroplane do itself. You're adjusting your throttle the whole time to keep in position.
Keep the nose down a little bit, Dave. A little bit more power just to keep that position now. The trick with formation flying is lots of little bits of power. That's right.
This is a complex operation that takes all the pilot's concentration and certainly doesn't give you time to look out for the enemy.
So you're in perfect position now, I think.
Okay, I've got the elevator cutting through the windscreen
Yeah,
there.
so keep it there.
You had to fly with your wing. In my case, I was number 3, so I had to fly with 1/3 of my wing inside, behind the other wing, and about 3 to 4 feet behind it, so you were very close to the other aircraft. We cruised at about 220 miles an hour, so you had to be very much on the qui-vive.
Of course, all the time you were doing that, you weren't looking round. You were looking at your leader. You never took your eyes off him. And if he missed something, then as a wingman, you got clobbered.
I'm having a bit of a lookout for you, but basically your leader is your lookout. You trust him implicitly, which of course in the war is what it was all about.
The English flew close together, in chains, and so it took them more time to realize they were being attacked. And we were often able to take them by surprise, including the Spitfire.
There was one occasion when Bolter and I were flying at the back of the formation, and we got jumped by a 109, and there was a green tracer going in between us. And he went to the right automatically, I went to the left, and I was so close to him, I could see all the oil streaks coming down the Spitfire.
Not only were the pilots told to fly in VIX, they were also expected to follow standard RAF attack guidelines. These involved forming into single file and opening fire as you slowly overtook the enemy one by one. It isn't hard to imagine what would happen next.
There were 13 pilots, and they only wanted 12. And so they drew out of the hat who was going to be on the lucky one, and it was me. So off went 19 Squadron, and they ran straight into a horde of Stukas, and they methodically followed Fighter Command Attack number 1, and went in, and you went in at a very slow overtaking speed of the target, and they were very slow, Stukas. And these boys were creeping in, ready, when of course down came the Messerschmitts and shot down the first 3 straight away.
It was absolute rubbish. It really was. We soon realised what was going wrong.
I mean, you were a sitting duck going in at about 10 mile an hour overtaking speed.
It was clear tactics had to change if RAF pilots were to have any chance of winning the Battle of Britain. Pilot Dave Mallon is being taught how to fly a Spitfire in close formation, an out-of-date tactic learnt by RAF pilots prior to the Battle of Britain.
Keep the nose down a little bit, Dave. That's nice.
Yeah,
we're keeping him playing with him.
Formation flying is difficult to get into position, but I think I dealt with it reasonably well. Just gently trickles of the power and just concentrating all the time on the one point on the aircraft and trying to keep that in your line of sight all the time. But it is hard work. It's really hard work.
Tight formations became highly unpopular with experienced pilots, and they soon started to develop their own tactic.
Sergeant Harker, Budge Harker and I started flying together, and we worked out that if we flew about 300 yards apart, level with each other, we could protect each other by seeing if any other aircraft would try to attack them from behind. And in fact, it happened on one occasion over Dover. Buzz called me up and said, "Watch out, there's a chap coming up behind you." So I went into a hard, tight turn, and had he not been able to tell me that, I would have been shot down.
The German pilots had adopted a loose flying formation in the years before the Battle of Britain. They developed a system called the Schwarm, where pilots flew in a well-spaced group of 4 planes with everyone able to cover each other's back and no danger of colliding with one another.
The Germans had learnt this in the Spanish War. It's far better to fly a loose formation of 2 aeroplanes, the rotor system, spread out, each covering everybody else, so using everybody's eyes to look for the enemy.
Experienced 11-group squadrons started adopting these loose formations early in the battle, but it didn't become general RAF policy till 1941, a delay that was to have terrible consequences. By the first week of September, 2 months of heavy fighting had taken its toll. Squadrons needed to rest and rebuild, and were replaced by units from the Midlands and the North who had little combat experience and no idea how seriously flawed their tactics were.
When I was at Curtin Lindsey, we had 1 or 2 sorties to look for bandits coming in. We didn't really run into it until at the end of August, when we were sent down to relieve 264 Squadron at Hornchurch. And then we took off the next day, and then you were right into a war, which really you hadn't been in before. Everything was peaceful up north, but down there it was quite different.
They were now locked in a deadly race, having to unlearn all their outmoded tactics before being decimated by battle-hardened Luftwaffe pilots who could not believe their luck. Their nickname for the Vic formation was the Row of Idiots. For the first time, the RAF looked in real trouble as losses mounted. These were dark days. To make matters worse, Park and Dowding were also fighting an internal political battle in Fighter Command against the head of 12 Group, Trafford Lee Mallory.
12 Group covered East Anglia and the Midlands, and it looked, before war broke out, as if that might be the place that any German attack would come from, because nobody reckoned on them capturing France. So afterwards, 11 Group became more important.
Lee Mallory had devised a new strategy, which he called the Big Wing, and was desperate for his squadrons to be allowed to try it. Rather than scrambling individual squadrons and attacking the Germans as quickly as possible, Lee Mallory thought it better to spend time assembling 5 or 6 squadrons into one large formation called a wing, and then attack the bombers en masse, even if this meant hitting them after they had dropped their bombs on the airfields.
This was not the way in which Dowding thought his system ought to be deployed, but Lee Mallory thought it sounded like a jolly good show because it would get him into the limelight as well.
Rendezvousing at 25,000 feet with anyone was extremely difficult. You've no idea how big the sky is.
If you're going to form up a wing, you can't just do it like that. It takes time, and time's not on your side. You've got to stop them getting to the target, not hit them after they've got to the target and gone back.
Lee Mallory's plan was inadvertently jeopardising another RAF advantage.
By and large, it was more worrying and more confusing for the enemy to be attacked successively by 10 individual squadrons than to be attacked all at once by 10 squadrons together.